Starting with high-quality assets provides the right foundation for a high-quality render. I mean, you wouldn't top Philemon Yon with cheese whiz, although if you want, I've got some recipes. Hey, what's up? I'm David Ariew, and I'm a 3D motion designer and educator, and I'm going to help you make your renders better. In this video, you'll learn how to find high-quality assets on sites like TurboSquid and kitbashed 3D, find 3D scanned displacement textures and characters, get free 3D scanned objects, make the most out of megascans, and discover the joy of PBR materials. If you want more ideas to improve your renders, make sure to grab our PDF of 10 tips in the description. Now let's get started. Another really important aspect of creating high-quality renders is starting from a solid foundation with high-quality assets. This may sound like an obvious one in theory, but in practice I've seen so many renders with low-resolution textures or obvious low-poly assets when the render isn't intended to look like that low-poly style. For instance, if we search for a whale on TurboSquid, we get these results, ranging from extremely low-quality whales, all the way through to ones with amazing UV maps and 8K textures, as well as animation sources baked in. I'm not saying that you'll have the cash for this, especially when you're just starting out, but on a paid job, it's often possible to put a hero asset like this as a line item in the budget. I'm using this whale example because I did this on my project here called Immortality, and the client paid for this model, and it actually saved him money because if I had to go in and animate these whales and hire someone to model them, it would have cost 5 to 10 times as much. One of my favorite sites for high quality models is kitbashed 3D, especially because they're so much cheaper than handpicking individual models on TurboSquid, and when you buy a pack like this, you've got a set of buildings or cars or whatever it is that have a consistent design language. So that saves you from having to scour the internet for a set of models that feel like they belong in the same world. These just do feel internally consistent right out of the gate. Take a look at the detail in this Aftermath kit, for instance, and how much love has been put into the modeling and the texturing. Another huge plus here too is that you can select your render engine before you download, and that saves you from having to load the maps and reconnect textures, so the ease of use is extremely high as well. Another favorite of mine is real displacement textures, and Kristofferson LAR, who runs this site, is amazing at creating the highest quality 3D scans out there and then converting them into displacement maps. For photorealistic grounds and rock walls, and just nature scenes in general, these are a must-have. And similar to kitbashed 3D, these all come with pre-made Octane setups. For characters, nothing beats 3D Scan Store, where all the people have been meticulously scanned in and cleaned up, with all the necessary maps created to help them look photoreal. Another great one is AXYZ Design, and they've got people with thousands of poses and different outfits for whatever you'd need. Also extremely high quality stuff. And one amazing free site for super high quality 3D scans is called 3dscans.com. Next, let's look at megascans. And at this point, I'm sure you're noticing a trend that oftentimes the highest quality assets are those that have been 3D scanned in, because they're literally pulled in from reality with all the existing uniqueness and imperfections intact. I love megascans too because it's pretty cheap for what you get. $20 per month gets you tons of credits, which include awesome surfaces and 3D scans. The export process is insanely easy too. If you download Megascans Bridge, also known as Quixel Bridge, then once you download an asset, you can just hit the export button here and it'll seamlessly import into Cinema 4D. And if you've got Octane or Redshift or whatever renderer you're using selected here as the renderer, all the textures will already be set up for that renderer. Here in Octane, it comes in as a universal shader, and the only thing you'll probably have to adjust is bringing down this metallic slider to 0 to make sure that it's accurate. You can also select from various levels of detail, so for instance here, LOD 0 is often enough to get the job done once the normal map is connected. But if you want to go crazy on the details, you can also select high poly, and then the source scan will come in, which just has an insane amount of information in it. Finally, let's talk about PBR materials, which just stands for Pabst Blue Ribbon materials. I mean, physically based rendering materials. These are essentially what we were looking at earlier, meaning that rather than going with materials that only have a diffuse map or maybe have a roughness map too, they have everything from a normal map to a specular to a displacement map. They're set up to look the highest quality and be the most realistic. Polygon is my go-to site for these materials, but there's also an amazing site called CCO Textures that's totally free. And if we look at this cyberpunk city that I textured from scratch, believe it or not, about 90% of these textures are from CCO, with the remaining 10% as roughness maps from my buddy Travis Davids. So this is a really great way to make sure you're sticking to a workflow that supports photorealism. One last note here, even the most detailed 8K textures can appear low resolution in your materials if they're improperly scaled. For instance, here we've got an 8K texture scaled way too high that clearly isn't working for the scene. So let's scale it down. And here we've got a 2K texture that is working because it's already scaled down so low. Resolution isn't exactly a fixed thing in 3D. It depends on how close you are to an object and how many times you're tiling those textures. So often you can get away with lower resolution textures without seeing pixelation. By keeping these tips in mind, you'll be well on your way to consistently creating awesome renders. If you want to learn more ways to improve your renders, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when we drop the next tip.